say, here's the stuff that people are good at, here's the stuff that machines are good at, not just at one point in time, not just in 2004, but for a long time going forward. Honestly, Exhibit A in their list of stuff that people are pretty good at and machines are horribly bad at was driving a car in traffic. And they said it can't be put into an algorithm. There's too much information to take in. The rules are fuzzy. They change all the time. The risks are too high if you get something wrong. Not going to happen. A couple summers ago, Eric and I went for a ride down Highway 101 in Northern California in a car that had no driver.
And this is with Google. And you were researching this book, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so
we wanted to see it for real.
You got in a car that drives itself in some of the worst traffic in America. As scientists, sort of semi-believing that that's not possible. Were you scared?
I was really scared, actually. What you were talking about, the bad traffic. The Highway 101 is supposed to be a highway. The traffic came to a dead stop right in front of us. The car in front of us was completely stopped in the middle of the road, and we're sitting there in our driverless car thinking, grabbing the handrails thinking, oh my God, does it realize that the car in front of us is stopped in the middle of the highway? Now, we're still here today, so yes, it did come to a nice, smooth stop.
And you said it even kind of drove better than people.
Well, at first, we were terrified. And just like you'd imagine if this were a sci-fi movie, there was honestly a big red button in the middle of the dashboard. And the Google engineer driving the car just went bump and took his hands off the wheel, and we were in a self-driving car.
The red button turned on the self-driving.
Got it.
And that
turns
was
off the human being.
It wasn't
turns
the
off
eject
the
button.
human. It was
By the way, in the future, then we'll be able to text and drive. We'll be able to watch movies on the way to work.
Yeah, in the future. In the future.
Not this morning.
in the not too distant future.
But again, isn't there a danger? Like now, if there is an accident, how badly does the company that made that algorithm get sued?
I take the other side of that because there are 30,000 deaths right now with human drivers. And I seriously doubt that these self-driving cars are going to have anywhere near that level.
So as long as it's better than human beings, in court they will win.
What we saw
That's
riding
a different question.
No, I think the insurance companies are going to demand it because these cars, what we rode in them, after we were scared, then the next phase we were kind of thrilled. We were waving at the people and saying, "Hey guys, look at us driving car." But most of the ride, all the way, it was an hour and a half up to San Francisco and back down to Mountain View. Most of the time, honestly, we were bored. It was a little bit like watching a dishwasher run. It was just so smooth and so comforting because we got a sense that this car knew exactly what it was doing. Better than most Boston taxi drivers, that's for sure.
That's not a very high bar, though.
I figured that the hobbyists will still have cars that drive themselves, but most cars will be self-driving.
And those hobbyists will probably have to pay higher insurance.
Yeah. It'll be like having something out on the roads. It'd be a great time to own bars, too, because you can drink all you want.
It'll be like off-roading, absolutely. There'll be a few people who do that just for kicks, but in terms of getting your job done, self-driving cars.
Now, one fundamental question about technology, it seems like everything is going towards where you need less people. You don't need a guy to drive your car. You have robots that can assemble things, yet the world's population continues to grow. We're having more people on the planet and less things for them to do. How are we going to even out the money so everybody can get along okay?
Well, that's a key question. We spent a good chunk of the book talking about it. One thing to bear in mind, if you go back to that arc of human history, is technology has always been destroying jobs, and it's always been creating jobs. For most of history, they've been in rough balance.
Or the creation has actually been a little bit ahead of the destruction.
And doesn't change almost always cause wars of various sizes?
The Industrial Revolution actually
didn't.
The Industrial Revolution didn't lead to a war.
It didn't. Okay.
Amazingly enough.
But it did lead to some revolutions of people, and people do get angry. There were Luddites almost exactly 200 years ago. The Luddites were smashing the looms because they saw them as taking their jobs. And today you see people throwing rocks at Google buses and more people getting angry. And we can understand why, because median income, the income of the person at the 50th percentile, is now lower than it was 15 years ago.
So that is true. The rich are getting richer, and on the lower end, they're getting poor.
It is absolutely a fact.
They're barely holding steady, or they're on some slight downward
trend. What about the global population of however many, 7 billion people or whatever it is? What about all those still living in abject poverty? So does this revolution hold out a hope that their standard of living improves?
Absolutely.
The good news there is that we talk about the two main economic consequences of this crazy progress that we're seeing. The first one is what we call bounty, more stuff, a higher standard of living, a bigger pie overall. The second is what we call spread. The division of that pie is getting more and more unequal. The really good news around the world, bounty is increasing, not just for those of us in the rich West, it's for everybody.
Which the revolutions usually do. Yeah.
Erik and I both spoke at at TED in 2013, and I don't want to brag, but Bono was my warm-up act.
Wow.
I know. But he gave this fantastic TED Talk. You got to go look it up, where he put the trajectory of eliminating extreme poverty around the world. We are going to do that in our lifetimes. For the first time in human history, we're going to get rid of it.
That's great. Now, more selfishly, I want to live forever. Or as close to forever as, until I get really exhausted. We are nanotechnology, biotechnology, all of the things we're working on are now made possible by the algorithms. The number of human brilliant minds is now multiplied by all of the calculations we can do, aided by computer machines. And that's what it is. It's the plow that tills the field, only the field is human knowledge and understanding.
And it's getting bigger and bigger and
it's getting monstrously huge.
Monstrously.
Are we going to live long enough to see some of these amazing medical breakthroughs, or are they going to be a couple of generations away?
We'll certainly see breakthroughs. And one of the things we emphasize in the book is a lot of the benefits of these technologies don't show up in the traditional GDP statistics.
Exactly.
The increase in health and longevity has created enormous value. In fact, by some calculations, more value than all the other innovations put together. And that's accelerating as well.
So will you live forever? We don't know. I'm kind of skeptical.
Doesn't look that good for now.
Let's put it up to a vote.
But you are going to live a longer, healthier life.
Probably, even now, but than I deserve.
Absolutely.
So
That's what I'm for.
I've got a great fear by all of this progress that you say, and it seems to be inevitable. What if people stop having to do things for themselves and having to think and calculate for themselves and research for themselves? Isn't there just an evolutionary diminishing of intellectual capacity?
Well, I don't know about diminishing of intellectual capacity, but there's definitely issues in terms of how people get a sense of meaning in life. We start one of the chapters with a great quote from Voltaire, of all people. And he says...
We don't want to get too erudite early in the morning here, but this is really important.
We've got something from Nikki Sixx next hour, so we'll balance it out.
Awesome. Balance out nicely.
Our yin and yang are in balance.
It's a short quote. I'm not going to read a whole book here, but he basically said that work solves three great evils: boredom, vice, and need. And as work goes away, there are issues with all three of those. We think that actually the easiest one to take care of is need. We can, through the bounty that Andy just talked about, deal with more material wealth for a lot of people, but people are still going to want to have a sense of meaning, a sense of work, and that's something that we do worry about.
So the problem we're not going to face in the future, Eric and I are really confident about it. The problem we're not going to face is the problem of not enough to go around, and that's fantastic
That
news.
seems to be the biggest problem.
It's a big, but you bring up another really fundamental problem is when if there's not enough work to go around, or in a post-work world, what does a meaningful life look like? What does a career look like? What does a community look like? Man,
purpose,
these are big questions. What is purpose? These are
All
big
right,
questions.
looking question. How brilliant was Gene Roddenberry for his time?
It's unbelievable.
No, it's amazing. We actually look at some of the stuff he describes to help understand a little bit about what could happen in a Star Trek future, a world of replicators. I was at a dinner with one of my MIT colleagues a few nights ago, and we were going around the room. Everyone was introducing what they were doing, and he introduced himself with not a sense of irony, saying, "I'm working on a Star Trek replicator."
And
basically a 3D printer.
Roddenberry gave us the hopeful version of the future, where we boldly go around and explore new worlds, and no one worries about their paycheck, and they just push a button to get their meal. All right, we're headed there.
Looking at the future, just say 40, 50 years from now, you look at Roman Empire and some of these things. Are we building an empire right here in Seattle? Is Seattle, you think, going to be a very big center of the technology revolution?
I think it's going to be a football empire.
Oh, there's some
a nice thing to say.
Hometown pandering. Good for you.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things. Actually, not just Seattle, of course. It's the Bay Area, maybe hopefully parts of the Boston area as well that are contributing to that. And one of the things that we're concerned about is that it becomes more and more uneven because not everybody is participating evenly. You tend to get these winner-take-all markets where you get companies and individuals, the Amazons of the world, who just take over a category and dominate it with their efficiency and their consumer value, and it's hard for other people to compete. Now, that's great for consumers. Obviously, it's great for the people working at Amazon and other companies like that, but then there are other people who aren't sharing in that.
But
And that's a digital.
Question,
That's a digital like Walmart, in a sense. Also, there's always a backlash when you're hugely successful.
when you're that successful. But to answer your question, Seattle is one of the places we come to get our minds blown and to get a lot smarter. We'll go to San Francisco, we'll go to the Bay Area, we'll talk to our geek colleagues in Boston, and we'll come here.
Well, you guys run the digital business school at MIT. Business to me means money. How can a guy that is not technology friendly like myself, how can I make some money off of this upcoming revolution? Where would you point me towards?
Well, the good news, it's not just tech geeks who are benefiting from this. The technology allows you to leverage all sorts of creativity, and that's why, people who make music do very well. People who do the arts do very well.
The best of them.
The best of them,
People at
exactly.
the top.
In these winner-take-all markets, machines aren't good at doing that kind of stuff. They're also not good at interacting with other people, interpersonal relations, caring for people. I've never met a machine that can really comfort a sick child.
But you hadn't driven a car that could drive itself.
Yeah, never
either.
say
Give it-
never.
How many
Yeah, never
years
say
will
never.
that take?
Oh, the
that's
nano
way
nanny.
in the
The nano nanny. Write that down. Write that down.
You can patent
Honestly,
that.
That could be way in the distant 10 years from now future, right?
Yes, the mantra that Eric and I keep repeating to ourselves is never say never. Because every time we go like, oh, okay, that's never going to happen, some geek shows us it's happening.
It's amazing. It's a wonderful time to live in. Guys, thank you for being here. Go see Erik Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee. The Second Machine Age is the book. Amazon's got a glitch this morning, and they're fixing it, so you can get the book there. I'm sure.